let's talk about the solar eclipse and new moon that's happening on June 10th. The sun is in Gemini. It is in our 3rd house. Gemini is a very chatty, loves to multitask, really loves social events, loves information, just doing new things, talking to new people, really running around and doing things like that. Our 3rd house is all about communication within our sibling realms, which when I hear that, I think of like soul family. How are we communicating with our soul family, the people that we're closest to? Are we expressing ourselves? So the main focus of that right now is the sun conjunct the moon and then sun conjunct Mercury. The sun's in a very chatty area already. It's in our communication sector. Mercury is all about communication. It is also in Gemini. So it's like those two energies should just vibe hard. Your ability to socialize after this retrograde, like your ability to socialize will come into play. Maybe right now you're kind of going through some phases of really looking at the way that you communicate, but just know that those energies right now are very harmonious, speaking your truth, communicating how you're feeling, especially with that sun conjunct the moon, because right there, that is just a connection of how we express ourselves with our inner emotions. And the moon is also in Gemini. It's a solar eclipse, so of course they're in the same sector. So it's just really vibing right there, really vibing in our communication sector, which is really cool. There are some other things that are coming up though, like a square to Neptune. A lot of our planets, like the moon, Mercury, the sun, so squares create tension. Conjunctions are like they kind of conjunct, they merge together, they vibe, the boundaries kind of get like blah, 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 blah. Squares on the other hand create tension, and they're there to kind of pull up things that we need to dive into, things that we struggle with, things that we need to restructure, revisit. Squares cause tension for a reason, and Neptune is that very dreamy planet. It's also in our 12th house, all about our illusionment, our spirituality, that we use our gifts, our ability, how we tap into energy, how we tap into source. That is squaring our communication. That is squaring our soul family ties, the way that we think about things and the way that we feel about things, and causing tension in those areas for us to look at. So let's talk about the solar eclipse for a second. First one starts off with the cleansing. Is like that purifying fire, that cleansing, that release, that letting go of everything. And then the second one, you would think with a new moon that we'd be setting intention, that we'd be full of energy, that we'd be just like wanting to get things going, but that's really not the case right now. It's like your energy is coming back after all of this release. So you're still releasing. Between the eclipse, it's called the lull, dark void, black hole, blank canvas, whatever you want to call it. So that lull is a time of kind of almost nothingness, just like a waiting period, like limbo, in suspension, almost a little bit, like you're being suspended above everything else. You could kind of just come to a stop for a second, and that is all for a purpose. This is again that restructuring. It's more of restructuring the inside so that when you do restructure the outside, they can match. Our moon's also in Mercury in our 3rd house. This is also comfort zones that make us feel comfortable. The places where we feel most ourselves, most aligned. One place that you go where you just feel at home. Moon being in that 3rd house, need for change here. There's a need for speaking our emotions. There's a need for balancing our logic and our heart. The main focus of all this is that moon conjunct Mercury and moon conjunct the sun is helping us balance our emotional intelligence, almost our logic and our emotions. It's just really helping us to communicate that in a very balanced way. And moon square Neptune as well. Maybe some stress in our emotions around illusions, disillusionment, spirituality, and our connections to communication. It's all up in here. So it's our belief systems, our traditions, the way that we perceive things, especially around comfort. I feel like a lot of us are going to go through a point in time where old things from our childhood that used to make us comfortable are going to now like pop up for us. Here, I have an example of this. So when I was little, I used to collect rocks. Now as an adult, I collect rocks. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna start to see like old passions from your childhood come up and want to be played out in your adult life, and it's going to help with that comfort, really tapping into that inner child, into that creativity. But there are some shadow sides with this moon and this sun in Gemini. Watch out for your ego. Try not to be too overconfident or too over victimizing, because Gemini can get a little bit ego because of how airy they are and how up in the clouds they are. They also have the two sides to them, and that tends to split, and they get way lost in their ego instead of staying in that balance of embodying your ego and your soul. And with that moon in Gemini, that weakness could be intellectualizing our emotions, even becoming cold. Gotta watch the way that you're holding your emotion. Do not become disattached to them. Really try and face them dead on, because that's what's being called for you. Mercury and Gemini in the 3rd house. That's why I'm like, guys, it's all about that. It's all about that comfort zone. It's all about that communication. It's all about those connections. Mercury's also in a retrograde. It also conjuncts Neptune, which this can complicate practical life. You can have chaotic thinking, be all over the place. But the cool side of this, so that's kind of the shadow of that. The cool side of this is that you could have so many freaking ideas that are coming through right now. The one thing is, don't get lost in trying to chase them all. Maybe just write them down and leave them for now, but you're gonna get lots of ideas flowing through because of the nature of that. This could also be kind of shallow, just because Gemini does like to bounce from one thing to the next. I'm never really getting too deeply invested in something. That's why I'm telling you guys to write these things down. Don't try and get yourself wrapped into them, because I feel like you're gonna get bored. You're gonna walk away. Write these things down. There will be a time and a place when you're gonna need them. A lot of information, especially with psychic abilities or psychic gifts. You're getting a lot of downloads, epiphanies, awakenings, whatever it is you want to call it. It does not matter. It's all the same thing. If you're getting things like that are coming to you that you're just not quite understanding yet, or something is just not quite falling into place for you or clicking for you, give it a little bit. Write about it. Maybe put it to the back burner. Try not to overthink it too much, because the thing is pieces are falling down from the puzzle. So let's talk about Venus. Just because it moved into Cancer, it's really not doing anything like super crazy. Squaring a Chiron, which is our wounded healer. Definitely going to see some tensions in maybe career wounding or love wounding. It's not it's 2 degrees. So it is a fairly prominent square. So you probably will feel it. Maybe just past memories coming up around love and career, or maybe a deeper desire to have more fulfillment in those areas. It has its pinchers, it has its defense mechanisms. You have to get to the bottom of it. You have to kind of dive deep for this one. You might just see your world through an emotional lens essentially. Can't talk. Mercury's in retrograde. It's fine. Watch out for codependency and putting your worth in someone else. Try and stay humble. That ego check right there. Also, that Venus is sextile Uranus, which is awakening to our own sexual, career, and love expectations, wants, and desires, and a change of pace in the areas of those lives. The thing is, this whole eclipse is kind of about connection, but I don't think we're connecting yet. This is like the hermit phase of really diving into self and looking at these parts of selves before you're going and putting yourself out into the world. Saturn is still in Aquarius and is still in retrograde, and it's still in the 11th house. Our 11th house is spiritual groups, revolutionizing our reality. And that's why I'm saying a lot of contracts are ending right now, are being formed, are being renewed. It's kind of this whole process of being like, who am I taking into the next phase of my life? Who are these connections? Who am I going to be? What am I going to believe? How am I going to express myself? Pluto in Capricorn, it is in the 10th house, which is about our purpose. And this stays in a single sign for many years. The cool thing about this right now is it's in retrograde. It's really the death and rebirth planet is what Pluto is all about. And when we're in Capricorn, organize things. It's the way that we work hard for things. It's the way that our tires meet the road, essentially. So we're going through a death and rebirth process of how we are manifesting and creating things in a physical way, in a physical realm. So those are kind of the major ones. If you want to know all of them, I did upload a blog post on the blog where I go into detail.